Fear is something every human experiences. From the day we hop out the womb, we're afraid of something. It could be something instilled in you by those around you, a bad experience, stuff you see in media, or just something primal. Regardless of how or why you got it, everyone has one. It's like Oprah. You get a fear, you get a fear. Fears change as you get older. The things that scared you as a kid most likely won't scare you when you're 70 or 80. When we're babies, we're practically scared but curious about everything. A dog barks too loud, a firework goes off, an ugly person smiles at you. That last one sometimes doesn't go away. Surprises, randomness, unfamiliarity. That's what scares us when we're babies. Like for me when I was a baby, any form of loudness got me. A train going by, a thunderstorm, people yelling at me. Those noises would often be so loud that my brain could only comprehend it as something bad's about to happen. Then we get a little older. Now we're a kid. We have more experience. I know now the train doesn't mean the world is ending. And that ugly person smiling at me, they're not a monster. They're just ugly. We can officially comprehend what's going on around us. And we can actually move. At this point is when we start getting into a new kind of fear. The fears you develop from first-hand experience. You woke up one day and saw a spider staring at you from your ceiling. Now you're scared of spiders. You got arachnophobia. Your brother wanted to play Bloody Mary, or your dad was watching a scary movie right next to you. Now you're scared of demons. You got demonophobia. It was spring cleaning time and your mom was vacuuming the rug. Now you're scared of vacuums. You got zooagoraphobia. That last one is real. These are the fears that can stick with you for a few days, a few months, a few years, or maybe even your whole life. Yeah, them vacuums get serious. Like for me, aside from my fear of dolls, I was scared of needles and the dark for a minute. Like with needles, anytime I had to go draw blood at the doctors, it was chaos. And normally I was a timid, reserved kid, probably off somewhere chilling on my PSP. But at the doctors, I was crying, trying to run, fighting back, and it was so frustrating because my parents would always tell me I'm overreacting, but why would I willingly get stabbed in the forearm by a random person? It doesn't make sense, Mom. Eventually I got over it. Nowadays I just close my eyes and grab onto something. But the dark, that one took me a little longer to get over. Being scared of the dark is a primal fear of humans. Even our stick and stone banging ancestors knew not to hunt at night, and they were stupid. The dark is like the definition of fear of the unknown, or at least an introduction to it. Because it's not like when you're in the dark, you're scared because you're seeing the color black. Well, the scary part is not knowing what's in the dark with you. It could be Slender Man, it could be Momo, it could be a racist cop. You don't know because you can't see. And since you can't see, it makes it scary. And the room could be perfectly empty when the lights are on. Not a person in sight. But the second you turn them lights off, your brain goes on high alert and assumes every demon from hell just spawned in. And at that point, you don't know. You don't know if it's your imagination or if that really is the king of pop right behind you. That's why I always hated having sleep paralysis growing up. You would wake up seeing pitch black, unable to move, and you're like half dreaming and half not. So you start seeing the scariest things. Like, what is Barney doing here? I was kind of forced to get over my fear of the dark when I was staying in the Dominican Republic. If you don't know, outside of resorts, DR is DR. Over there's constant, and I mean constant power outages. Literally, sometimes you won't go more than 2 days without hearing at least one. So being in the dark, although it may be scary, especially over there with the witches, the bats, the flying roaches, it's something you gotta get used to. And I did get used to it, but I was 13, so I was already a teenager. And by the time you're a teenager, there's bigger things to worry about because you're officially in high school. That night before the first day of school is the most anxiety-filled night you could think of. I used to be up thinking, am I gonna make new friends? What if my old friends don't like me? What if the teachers don't like me? What if nobody likes me? But what if they rock with the first day fit? At that age is when we care the most about what other people think. Getting embarrassed back then feels like it's worse than anything else that could happen to you. And I knew that all too well. I was a shy background character type of student back then. I avoided everything that could potentially lead to me being laughed at or murmured about. And I especially avoided presentations. Presentations were the worst. Anytime I had to do a project involving a presentation, I'd either avoid doing it or I'd do it, but I'd let my partners do all the presenting. I was that kind of classmate. But there were times you couldn't avoid doing that dreaded solo presentation. And tell me if this ever happened to y'all, but y'all ever had a presentation day and you're nervous, but you're going last, so it's whatever. You walk into class, you sit down, and all of a sudden, you look around and every single person who was supposed to go before you was absent? Looks like Michael is also absent. Well, Derek, you're up. Gotta be top 5 worst feelings ever. I'd get up there and it was all types of, so yeah, yeah, It was terrible. But the thing that scared me more than presenting in school was school shootings. Prior to my freshman year, I don't remember doing a single lockdown drill. Maybe one in 8th grade, but they weren't that common. I was only used to slowly walking out the building during fire drills, so I didn't know why we were doing them. To me, it was just another excuse to not do classwork for another few minutes. I loved it. But when I found out why we did them, it instilled a new fear in me. A fear that I could randomly be sitting in class one day and hear 2 pops down the hall and know in my mind, I'm probably not gonna be saving anyone. It's sad, but it's true. What was I, a 5'7", 114-pound freshman supposed to do? Nothing. We're powerless in this situation. Your only hope is literally to become cool for every white kid in the school. That's the only precaution you can take. Luckily, once you graduate, most of these school fears go away. Even though you're in college, it's definitely not the same. You're an adult now. Yes, you may still carry some of the fears from your childhood, whether it be fear of the ocean, your fear of heights, your fear of vacuum still for some reason. Get over it, bro. You can manage yourself. You can avoid these things. The fears you're really looking out for when you're an adult are the mental ones. Commitment, rejection, loneliness, and of course, failure. Failure is something I think most of us by the age of 18 start fearing, if not at least thinking about. The idea of legacy. What do I want to accomplish in my life? And will I accomplish it? Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. You start looking toward the potential future where instead of becoming an architect, a doctor, a lawyer, or anything else you want to be in life, you just end up working the drive-thru at your local Burger King. This fear of failure sometimes consumes us completely. We imagine all these possible ways we can fail instead of just focusing on the ones where we can actually win. It makes no sense. What is wrong with you? Don't you want to win? Don't you want to succeed? As someone who didn't know what they wanted to do in college and watched way too much YouTube, failure felt inevitable for me. By the time I saw my SAT scores junior year, I was like, yep. I'm serious too. This fear of failure used to plague my mind. It's the reason I always felt bad for Asian kids growing up. Because if I had that fear, you know they had it. Fear of failure is not always about career or academics though. It can be something as simple as fear of getting rejected by your crush, fear of playing bad for your sports team, or not wanting to learn a new thing like driving because you feel like you'll just hit everybody or something. There's so many ways you could fail. How could you not be afraid of it? It's quite literally the ultimate unknown. You can't predict the future, but the funny thing about failure is we literally fail all the time as humans. Like, have you ever seen a baby fall in public while trying to walk? That baby failed at walking, but it doesn't just sit there and cry. You know, at that height, they don't take fall damage. They just get back up and try again. If not, how would they learn how to walk? If babies didn't bounce back from failure, we would have a society full of Stephen Hawking. Even back to Mr. Put the Fries in the Bag working the drive-thru at Burger King. He could be doing that at the fossil age of 30, and that's not necessarily failure. He might have just fallen like that baby and he's just waiting to get back up. It's what he decides to do after his fall that determines whether or not it's failure. It's dependent on what you do and what you perceive as success. Sadly, this is something people don't realize till they're older. Sometimes all the way past adulthood when you reach that old man status. And by that point, it's not that you can't anymore, it's that you're more worried about other things like why parts of you are sagging that low. And what's on your mind at that age is death. Death is literally something that's gonna happen to every single one of us. You could be watching this video in 2024, 2054, the year 3000. Unless you make like some immortality super soldier serum, it's gonna happen to you. Death is scary. I don't like thinking about death. I mean, I've literally been alive my whole life. I don't know nothing besides living. The idea of not experiencing anything on the face of the earth ever again is hard to wrap my mind around. No sadness, but no happiness. No more arguments, but also no more good moments. No more chocolate ice cream, but also no more salted caramel ice cream. You don't go through any more hardships, but you also lose that great feeling when you eventually overcome that hardship. It's scary, and death is especially scary when you lose someone close to you. Now, I'm gonna share something with you guys that I've never shared on this channel before. About 5 years ago from the making of this video, September 2019, I lost one of my close friends. And at the time, I was distraught. I had lost my grandfather 3 years prior, so I knew that death isn't something that just hits you up like, hey, I'm in town, I brought donuts. Let's link up. It's a surprise, a very, very bad one, but a surprise nonetheless. But with this one, it felt different. When you're older, as sad as it sounds, you expect it eventually. Doesn't mean it doesn't shock or hurt anyone, because it does, it really does. But you know, we tend to die when we get older. But when you lose someone close to you that was at a young age, that's just not something you're expecting. People are less accepting of those kinds of deaths. I was sad, I was angry, I was confused, but more than anything, I was scared. I had close encounters with death before, but these encounters didn't compare to how close death feels when you lose a loved one. It felt like death was right around the corner, just waiting to take another one of my loved ones or to just take me. But let's take a step back and look at this positively. If death is so close to us and unpredictable, then that gives us even more of a reason to cherish, to experience, to try. Cherish those around you. Cherish yourself. Cherish any good moment you can and find a lesson or even humor in the bad ones, because you may not know when your last one will be. Experience new foods, new activities, new anything, and make sure to try. Please try. Don't let your fear of failure, or your fear of death, or your fear of me, or your fear of anything for that matter, stop you from doing what you want to do. Whether it be applying for that school, uploading that first video, or facing that fear of women that a lot, and I mean a lot of y'all commented. Yeah, we're gonna have to tackle this in a separate video. Giving up wasn't an option for me in this YouTube channel. There were a lot of moments when I didn't know how it was gonna happen, but I knew I wanted it to happen, because I'd rather be the dude that dies trying than the dude who just was too scared to try. It's how you get all these stories of these random old heads saying, man, if I would've kept it up, I would have been the next Jay-Z, man. Yeah, Cracky, take my dollar and go. Not everyone will support you, and that's okay. You don't need them to. As long as you believe, you can achieve. There's a powerful quote by this dude, Ralph Waldo Emerson, that goes, fear defeats more people than any other thing in the world. So, the question is, are you gonna let it defeat you?